What's up, everybody? This is so many. Wow. I love it.
Kim Possible can't take us on.
I was gonna say, I think I could do it. I think she could. She could like pow pow. There could be some powing. Well, hi. What's up? Who's asking questions?
We'll start here.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
But I answer this way?
You can answer whoever you want to answer to.
Okay.
So it was just announced that there's the voice actor competition happening. What will that entail? Like, how will the process go in picking the winner? I mean, obviously, I know you can't give like exact details, but any information.
I mean, I think Will has more of a vision for how the practicality of this competition is going to go, so he'll be really better at telling you that particular thing. But it sounds to me like he's been saying it's more like the American Idol. So it sounds to me like we're going to get people involved, like great animation voices, and maybe even like I think Andrea Romano, if she's willing to come back and help us direct like some of the last finalists and stuff like that. I think we're really going to build this out to set these people up to have their big break brought to them by I Hear Voices. Because if you know the Comic-Con community, you know, Will and I have been so passionate about our fans for so many decades that once we started doing Comic-Cons together, and Kim and Ron like together, there's just such a love for each other that we have that, you know, when we were doing panels, we realized how good we got along on stage and how we could pick up each other's, like, you know, when he has anxiety or something, like I'm right there to make him laugh, and you know, he also teases me and I don't punch him in the face. So basically we have this great rapport, and it's transferring itself to the podcast, and we love our fans so much that collectively we just kind of want to have something like given to them that gives us joy, like they bring us joy.
So it's pretty easy to tell when animation showrunners and voice directors like working with actors.
Yeah.
Like It's Impossible, you've also done episodes of Penguins Madagascar and Big Hero 6.
That's right.
With Robert Scully and Marco and Alicia Schaefer. So I'm curious how your work relationship has developed with them since doing Impossible.
You know, I was so happy to get calls for both of those projects from them because it felt like I was coming home. You know, Bob and Mark and Lisa kind of work together, and they work away from each other, but the fact that they thought of me to cast me in things because they were together, it was so touching. You know, I don't technically work in voice acting as much as maybe I'd like to. I'm more of a content creator. I live in Austin, Texas. My life is very different from living in Hollywood and stuff like that. So, you know, I was still living in Orange County at the time when I got both of those calls, and I was, again, just so touched to like come back to the studio to, you know, what studio was it? I'm trying to think which one it was. It wasn't LA Studios, but it was like I said, like being home with your family. And so I do think you're right insofar that there's bonding that happens, and that's a lot of the time why you see the same people booking over and over again. But with so many different shows, there's definitely room for more people, talented people, the next generation, to be like brought into the mix of these things. You know, there's more opportunities than there are voices at this point.
How does it feel that people still love Impossible so much after all these years, and what would you say to a new generation that might be getting into it?
Wow, I can't tell you how much joy it brings me when the little Impossibles, like the little kids, and it's mostly because their mom has turned them on to it, and so they dress them up, and like, I'm a mom of 2 girls now, and so seeing that just brings me a joy that I can't even explain, and I certainly wouldn't have realized that, you know, when I was 16 and playing Kim Possible, and now it's really come full circle for me 20 years later. And I do think that Kim still very much has a stronghold over this mentality of inclusion and sort of empowerment and fighting for good and representing her community and saving the day. And so I think that that's all things that I can get behind and be very proud of.
Can you talk a little bit about how your musical theater background kind of assisted you with voice acting? Because a lot of the techniques are very similar.
Oh my God, totally. So actually, we were talking at today's podcast about Fred Tatasciore ability to warm his voice up and then cool his voice down, and what led me to talk about briefly, I had nodular surgery, and I believe I had that, I had that after establishing my voice as Kim Possible. Kim is really healthy for me because even right now as I'm talking to you, I'm pitching my voice very high, and it's probably so that I can save my voice from getting trashed, but that's just instinctually. When I was a kid, I was doing musical theater, I was doing Annie, I was screaming and belting and not using my voice correctly, and so after I ended up having nodular surgery, I did Belle in Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, and I had to relearn techniques to not trash my voice again, because we've seen it with people like, oh my gosh, why do I always forget her name? She's the mom in Princess Diaries. She's a grandmother, Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews had nodular surgery, lost she can't sing anymore because it was a malpractice situation. So it was risky, and I don't want to lose my voice forever. Whether I'm going to sing again in my lifetime or if I'm just reading, stories to my kids. My voice, even though I'm not working a ton as a voice actor, means so much to me as something that is a part of my life. So, singing and the voice and how it's used are very important to me in general. Thank you. Yeah, for sure.
On the subject of music, there are songs that stand the test. There's
which one?
We got Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. We got, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and the legendary We Went to the Moon in 1969. So, two-part question. Part one, tell me everything about the filming of that sequence and the legacy of that song. Part two, my Comic-Con dream. Can we sing the first line together?
We can do that right now. We can all do it if you want. Okay. All right, 1, 2, 3.
We went to the moon in 1969, not 1968 for the year after.
All right, good job. We did it.
Comic-Con dream come true.
Yes! Oh, I'm so touched. Thanks, guys. I love you guys. And we're all aged now. I know all of your ages. I love it. And then the other question was...
Tell me everything about the recording of that song and just the legacy of it for you.
When you hear a lot of the old school decoms and people singing and stuff, you assume that it's in this production booth and it's this thing. I think that it was the music that was created for Even Stevens' musical episode was our composer, our producer, a lot of our directors, Paul Hohen. Paul Hohen is a huge decom director. I think he's directed all the Zombies movies and a ton of these movies. Paul's a great guy, but all of them were growing up together. Sean McNamara and David Brookwell were our executive producers, and they also did the Raven show and they're huge Disney Channel from that era producers. They're the people that made it all happen. They were all in a band in Santa Monica / Venice. They were like Beach Boys, and so what would happen was they hired out a lot of their friends along the way that I guess ended up in the entertainment industry. Long story short, because you wanted to know everything, the guy that created all of that music, including that anthemic song that everybody cannot get out of their ears, which I would not have thought it would have happened. He was just he was our producer, our music scoring guy. He scored everything, and then he went into songwriting mode, and so I went and just performed it in his garage, and it was just some really ragtag thing that I didn't even think of. And there was other times that I would sing on Even Stevens, the Twitty Stevens Connection and Sacramento Girl and all these random things. I never took any of that stuff seriously, but I think there's a generation that watched all of that musical stuff, and it was before High School Musical. So for them, that was in a weird way their connection to music and Disney. Weird to me, very weird, because we all know Disney as being this very musical place, but it wasn't like that for a long time. There was no High School Musical. So, and sidebar, when our musical episode tested off, the ratings went off the charts for some reason. They started talking internally about doing High School Musical. And that was verified to me by Gary Marsh. And they had like some milestone marker map that Disney brought out, like for some anniversary of Disney Channel, and we went to the moon, and like that musical episode was part of the milestones for Disney Channel.
Wow. You realize this means that if you had not sung that song, Zac Efron would not have a career.
Yeah, you can directly blame me for Zac Efron. Yes, it is my fault, but I guess, yeah, okay. He's not a bad guy. He doesn't seem like it. No, thank you for I know, I mean, the abs, right? The abs.
It's amazing.
On your podcast so far, do you have
which one? I have two.
The I Hear Voices podcast.
Okay.
Yes. On the I Hear Voices podcast, who has been your favorite guest so far?
Oh man, that's so hard to say. Oof. Oh my goodness. So I cannot play favorites. I can say that my favorite person on the podcast is Will. He won't answer the same. He'll probably not tell you it's me, jerk. But I think that just having him as a partner in all of this, as a consistent partner, and learning from him, because he does so many different like jobs. Like he's in the weeds of this voice acting world. I'm not as much as he is. Not only that, he's a huge nerd, and like I'm a nerd, but I like Harry Potter, I like Twilight. Like I'm like more of like the female demo nerddom. He's like straight up Dungeons and Dragons. He knows every single animated thing ever, and so we kind of came together, me as like a mom, and watching all these animated things now as like I have these two kids, and so it was just kind of fun because I'm from a different perspective. So we're at two different ends of the spectrum in terms of our appreciation for animation, but yet we're still both professionals in the craft. So that's why I think we have a unique perspective when we come together, and so that's why he's my favorite guest, if you want to call it that.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So speaking about all these voice actors on the podcast, has there been a story that's really surprised you?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get her name wrong too. Please don't quote me on that. Brendan, what was Miley's last name?
Miley is
yeah, Miley, right? So Miley Flanagan is Taruto, right? Am I saying that right?
Naruto.
Guys, I'm the mom. I'm the dumb mom in the podcast. Naruto, yeah. Strike that from the records. 50 cameras looking at him. Yeah, no, Miley. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Miley Flanagan is. Was she a spy, or was she?
She was recruited to be a spy.
That's what it was.
And her father was a spy.
That's right. So her father was a spy, and then she was being recruited to become a spy, okay, by the CIA. Like, no bullshit. And so she was like completely different world, completely different life. And here she is, Naruto. Like, so I find that we really enjoy at I Hear Voices deconstructing not just the face of the voice, but the story of the person coming to the craft of voice acting, because the community is so friendly. Everybody is so willing to talk to you, to have a real authentic conversation with you. Like, since moving to Austin, something that I've kind of learned is that there's a big difference between like people that just enjoy community and people that want to be the most important person in the room. And so I enjoy that about Comic-Cons too, is that there's a community. So when Will and I came together, and Brendan as well, who was our executive producer, it was like, let's make a community that can travel wherever we go. And so with Miley, it's very cool to deconstruct her story, and she has a really unique one. So that's
so I have a question.
Yeah.
It's, how do you feel knowing that one of the original audiences, so I'm part of the target demographic, like Kim Possible, and I've kind of grown up alongside you growing up.
Yeah.
How does it feel knowing that all of those milestones, you became a mom, you're finding joy in the things you do now in your career, instead of just kind of having to do things you had to do. Now, how does it feel knowing that you're one of the bases for like self-confidence, girl power, there's a lot of things just instilled in that generation.
Yeah.
They're now entering the workforce. They're still watching you go into your career. How does it feel knowing that you're part of all of that?
So girl power has taken on quite a different ring to it. I think over time the girl power movement has shifted quite greatly. I think Disney Channel, when I was growing up in it, I was very proud to be a part of what was aiming at their main demo, right? So Disney Channel's main demo was essentially, middle class to upper middle class, little girls from the age of like 8 to 13, and then they would switch over to like CW. And I didn't understand that until I think I was starting to play Kim, and then I started to understand why she was so attractive to people, and why she had to change her clothing, which was like amazing. Disney never allowed like canon characters to change clothing outfits, like Mickey Mouse, pants, shoes. I guess until recently, and at the parks he does different things, but like when it came to how she was represented, it was a huge deal, and that directly came from how people were writing in about how they wanted to see her in different, ways. They wanted her to be like a real person, which I always think is interesting, come to think of it, how people see me. I'm the most recognized voice actor, even though some of the people from the younger part of the generation didn't see me in even Stevens, or if they did, it was subconsciously buried in their minds from, I don't know, a rerun here and there, or Cadet Kelly or something. So it's weird to me how I don't work all the time like a Will Friedle or, E.G. Daily, but people know my face. And so I almost sometimes feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, but because of that legacy of empowerment and girl power, I'm just going to go with it. Like, I have no reason to be like, afraid of that, or like I don't want to embrace that part of my life. When people say to me like, oh, Kim Possible was back then, like, why are you still talking about it? It's like, wouldn't you want to continue to talk about something positive in your life? And there's just nothing wrong with it, in my opinion. So no matter what happens to the future of who KP is, or how she looks, or whatever it is, like, I'll always back the fact that she represents something positive and should continue to. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
And do you have any dream guests you'd like to have on the podcast?
Wow, our Pinky and the Brain folks, we really like to get them on. I'm trying to think. I can't wait to get someone like Sam Riegel on. He's really big with Critical Role, and of course it's like one of those things where it would be really cool to get the director's perspective, because he directed The Lion Guard, and I was for a little bit of time doing a lot of Harlequin books before I was pregnant, and I was like, I think I'm not going to do it anymore. And I'm like sitting there pregnant, I'm like, I'm not going to do Harlequin novels anymore, because I was doing audiobooks, because a lot of times that's if you're not doing animation and you want to keep your voice going. I was doing audiobooks, and Sam was on the other side, and he was doing Sophia, and then he was doing Lion Guard, and now like my girls love Lion Guard, and so I would probably fangirl over the people nowadays that I think have a direct connection to my kids. And so that's just kind of the cycle of animation. But overall, I'm a big fan of animation. So every guest that we have, like I said, I can't really pick. I'm just happy that they're willing to sit down with us and have like a really like authentic conversation. And you know what? We're pretty good hosts because we get it out of people. Like someone like Fred today, like I've seen interviews with him where he hasn't really opened up. He's very shy apparently, from what I've heard. But when you have them sit down and you kind of grill them from the beginning of their career, and you don't let them just because they go on autopilot when they go into these interviews, and they do it so long. He was going to another panel right after ours. But what they do is they start to really deconstruct and think back on their own lives. So we have a good time with getting them to open up. So thank you guys.
Thank you.